The mahogany desk felt impossibly slick beneath Elise Vance's fingertips. She was sitting in the exact spot where, 3 weeks ago, her wife, Elara, had delivered the fatal blow, a cool, surgical confession of her affair with a junior partner, followed by her immediate departure. She hadn't just left Elise. She had filleted her. Elara was a master of rapid wealth extraction. Over 2 days, she'd liquidated the accessible portfolio, the stocks, the bearer bonds, the vacation homes, the art collection that wasn't insured via the trust, and the contents of every checking account. She walked away with almost $90 million in highly liquid assets, leaving Elise the sprawling primary estate, the offshore trusts, and the foundational generational wealth. The billions tied up in slow-moving, legally complex structures that would take months, if not years, to fully monetize or divide. She had called Elise a pauper, an idiot chained to her slow money. Elise, still reeling from the emotional devastation, felt nothing but a hollow echo in her chest. It was true. She was alone in a house the size of a museum, surrounded by artifacts of a life that was now toxic. She thought she was ruined. Then the encrypted message arrived. The message wasn't delivered via email or courier. It came via a secure satellite phone-to-satellite phone network, a connection Elise maintained solely for communications with her long-retired mentor, Dr. Alastair Finch. Alastair, a brilliant paranoid astrophysicist, had been tracking solar anomalies for decades, funded largely by her early investments. The message was one line. Vance, the convergence is confirmed, T-minus 28 days. Prepare for the flash and the silence that follows. Elise didn't need an explanation. She had seen the preliminary models years ago. The theoretical possibility of a Carrington event on steroids. A massive coronal mass ejection, CME, from the Sun, aimed squarely at Earth, capable of inducing magnetospheric currents so powerful they would overload every power grid, burn out every integrated circuit, and permanently cripple global communication networks. Civilization, as they knew it, would cease in an instant. Elara had taken the quick cash. She had left her the foundation, the billions she couldn't move, and the vast, defensible property in rural Montana that served as the primary trust asset. She thought she had stripped Elise naked, but in fact she had unintentionally given her the exact tools and the exact motivation required for survival. The countdown began. Elise didn't grieve the betrayal anymore. Grief was inefficient. The searing pain of Elara's calculated malice had been transmuted into a cold, diamond, hard focus. She had 28 days to convert impossible wealth into absolute security. Her first action was to shut down Elara's ability to move the remaining funds. She filed swift, aggressive legal motions, citing her sudden, unwarranted abandonment and the suspicious liquidation of joint assets. The money was frozen, legally inert, but still available for her singular, urgent purpose. She began hiring, not laborers, but specialists, former deep earth mining engineers, EMP shielding experts, logistics coordinators who asked no questions, and 2 medical professionals lured by absurd, untraceable payments. The work centered on the sprawling, mountainous estate in Montana. Beneath the property was an unfinished project, a massive, reinforced wine cellar and vault designed during the height of Y2K paranoia. Elise instructed her team to convert the vault into a self-sustaining, pressurized habitat. She paid for speed, secrecy, and quality. In week 1, she secured the structure. Titanium shielding for the electrical infrastructure. A highly directional, narrow-beam communication system powered by a Faraday cage diesel generator. They began drilling for a dedicated geothermal well, providing heating and secondary power. In week 2, the supplies arrived. not luxury items, but the essentials of deep survival. Crate after crate of MREs, water filtration systems heavy enough for a small town, pharmaceutical-grade antibiotics, radiation monitors, and enough spare vacuum tubes and mechanical tools to repair anything analog. She bought rifles, ammunition, and, most importantly, seed banks optimized for cold weather growth. In week 3, the final layer of redundancy was installed, a closed-loop atmosphere system and a system of heavy, manually operated steel doors sealed with hydrostatic pressure. She named the bunker Ark Zero. The fortune was depleted, not wasted. Elise had spent nearly $2 billion in 3 weeks buying total insulation from the coming storm. The irony was acute. The wealth accumulated through capitalist ambition was now being used to buy the ability to live outside of capitalism. On day 25, an email slipped past Elise's rapidly restricting firewalls. It was from Alara. The subject line was, "So much simpler now." She was supervising the installation of the final airlock, a grim, grey circle of steel, when her communications specialist handed her a printout. "Elise, I am writing this from the deck of the Andiamo. My ship now, not ours. Monte Carlo is marvelous this time of year. I saw your idiotic legal filing trying to freeze the funds. Darling, you're so predictable. Enjoy your empty mansion and your lawyers. We are having Dom Perignon and truffles. You are probably ordering takeout and crying into your ledger books. You couldn't move fast enough to stop me, and you never could move fast enough for life. I have everything I need. You have your pathetic little trusts and your paranoia. I won. Honestly, leaving you was the best investment I ever made. Yours, not remotely. E." Elise read the letter twice. She didn't feel anger. He felt a profound, icy pity. Alara was surrounded by the finest examples of the doomed civilization, a floating palace of glass, circuits, and satellite navigation. She was utterly reliant on the global infrastructure that had 72 hours left to live. She had taken the liquid cash, believing liquidity was power. She was celebrating her freedom in the epicenter of the blast zone. Elise crumpled the paper and tossed it into a steel waste bin. "Prep the shielding," she ordered the foreman. "Zero tolerance for leaks." She considered calling Alara. She considered leaving a message, but she realized there was nothing to say. Her ignorance was her punishment, and Elise's preparation was her silence. It was day 28, T-4 hours. Elise dismissed the last of the contractors, paying them a final, obscene bounty of gold bullion. They were confused, terrified, and rich. He watched them drive away down the single winding access road, never looking back. They would not make it far enough. She was alone, save for her 2 security specialists, former Special Forces fiercely loyal, and the medical doctora beautiful med student she sponsored years ago. They were deep within Ark Zero. The bunker was a study in analog austerity. Walls of grey, reinforced concrete stood in every shadow. Light provided by hardened LED fixtures designed for deep-sea usage whispered small sounds in nearly every interior. The air smelled clean, sterile, and metallic. On a central console, a series of gauges, mechanical, not digital, displayed oxygen levels, pressure, and the external atmospheric magnetic flux. The countdown clock was a simple ticking mechanism she had salvaged from a vintage timepiece. It hit 0. T-0. There was no sound, only the sudden, intense pressure drop felt deep in the ears, followed by the faint hum of the structure's shielding reacting. Outside, the solar flare, the great dust, had struck. It wasn't a bomb or an earthquake. It was a wave of pure electromagnetic energy. In the first tenth of a second, every modern electronic device on the planet ceased to function. Power lines vaporized. Satellites tumbled silently into dead orbit. The glittering yacht Alara was sailing likely became a dark, drifting hulk in the Mediterranean, its GPS, radar, navigation systems, and engine controls instantly fried. Then came the silence. Elise stood watching the external magnetic flux needle pin itself to the top of the gauge for 30 minutes before slowly, grudgingly falling back. The doctor, a woman named Lena, spoke first. Her voice was thin. "That's it?" "That is all of it," Elise replied, her voice calm. "The end of the old world is usually very quiet." She walked to a small, reinforced safe she had placed in her private quarters. She opened it, retrieving the only two modern items she had kept. The first was a small, military-grade satellite phone, EMP, hardened and packed with specialized battery cells, a communications tether to Doctor Finch if the system survived. The second item was the printout of Alara's email. She looked at the words. "I have everything I need. You have your pathetic little trusts and your paranoia. I won." Elise did not burn the paper. She simply tore it diagonally once, a clean rip. She had won a different game entirely. She was alive, insulated and equipped. She was not a pauper chained to her slow money. She was the sole, protected steward of a few self-sustaining acres in a suddenly dark world. The money had bought her 30 days of life. Now that money was worthless, and her survival depended on her own hands and her knowledge. She dropped the pieces of the email into the waste bin. "Dr. Lena," Elise said, turning to the physician, "let's review the rotation schedule for the geothermal vent checks. We have a long first winter ahead.